Picture the endless frozen void of Alaska, where the ice is unforgiving and never forgets. Over 20,000 souls have simply vanished. Planes dissolve into white nothing with no wreckage, no cries for help. Hikers disappear within sight of safety. And in the shadows, the Kushtaka wait, the land ottermen of Tlingit legend. Shape-shifting demons that mimic the voice of your loved ones or a helpless, crying child, luring you deeper into the woods to tear your flesh from your bones and steal your soul forever. This is the Alaskan Triangle, far more sinister than the Bermuda Triangle ever dreamed. You're listening to The Wandering Crow. Tonight, we walk into the darkness, but beware, once the Kukushta calls your name, you may never find your way back.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the wandering crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Welcome back, murderers and wanderers, to the Wandering Crow podcast. This is JT.
This is Abbey.
This is Mandy.
And Mandy, what does your screen say? What is that? What is that word?
Kalupalik.
And what does that mean?
Basically, it's a selkie, kind of, and it's this thing that, like, hangs out in the waters and will, like, snatch your kids and shit. It's an Inuit mermaid. She sounds a lot like Jenny Greenteeth.
So you talked about that in Sirens. Skelky.
Selkie.
And listeners, it still says elf curious. Still elf curious.
Yes, it does. She's still elf curious.
Mine says bright but dumb. And
Yeah,
I don't know when I put that, but it's true. And JT.
Mine says been there.
Yeah, why does yours say been there?
Yeah, because I've been to the Alaskan Triangle.
Oh,
that's
all
exciting.
right.
I went there by boat.
Well, you're still alive. Congratulations.
I'm still alive because I didn't go walking around any glaciers or anything. I looked at them from the sea.
Oh,
Good
okay.
decision.
Yeah.
From the viewpoints that are safe.
Yeah.
Basically, that's where people go wrong, is going into the land.
Yes. All right. So we're talking about the Alaskan Triangle today. And just for context, the Alaskan Triangle stretches. So the very triangle tip is Anchorage, Alaska. Everybody knows where Anchorage, Alaska is, right? And then from Anchorage, it goes southeast to Juneau.
Yes.
Juneau, Alaska is one of the only cities. The only way you can get to it is either by boat or by plane. You cannot get to there by car, at least unless they've built a road to it, but I haven't heard of doing that. From Juneau, it goes all the way north to the other side of the state, kind of northwest to formerly Barrow, Alaska, Utqiagvuk.
We looked this up.
Mine says
right
Point Barrow.
Sorry, I totally ruined that. Totally screwed that
Tell
up.
Abby the thing you told me about Point Barrow.
Oh.
That it used to be Barrow, Alaska?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, yeah.
Because she says on her research, it came up as Point Barrow.
No, I mean, it didn't. Not in my research,
Oh.
just in the version of the map that I have up right now. Because he said the very tip is Anchorage. And I was like, the very tip usually means like the top, like the
when
end.
you talk about the shape
it's a
of the
triangle, so it's got 3 points.
Yeah, so like the base. So when I look at the map,
It's an obtuse triangle.
When I look at it, like to me, that's the tip. I don't know. Whatever.
It's one of the.
It's my
the
geometric mind. It's 3 points, and it stretches a very large area of Alaska, but not the entire area of Alaska. So, although there's a lot of deep history in this, what?
I've heard people going on and on and on about how the Alaskan Triangle is basically the entire state of Alaska. But when I'm looking at it, like when I finally laid eyes on it, I was like, what the frick are they talking about? It's like less than half of the state. And it spills over into the Yukon Territory in Canada. I'm just like, these people are weirdos.
Would you like to hear some numbers?
Okay.
What numbers?
I have some numbers.
I don't know. It sounds boring.
Alaska
Go ahead.
is a state which covers an area of roughly 663,000 square miles. That's the land and the water, which makes it twice the size of Texas. Okay. That's 1/5. So that's approximately 20% of the whole landmass of the continental United States. The triangle part of it. So remember, 663,000 square miles is Alaska. The triangle, depending on who's doing the estimate, is anywhere as large as 325,000 square miles. So it does take up about half. But you're right, a good portion of, like, there's a decent portion of the triangle that spills over into Canada. But the land that is considered the triangle is about half the size of Alaska.
About, though.
325,000 compared to 663,000.
Square miles.
Yes.
So just less than half.
It's like ginormous. Yeah. I've heard that it's about the size of
Isn't
California.
that what I said?
You said that there were people
I
saying
said it's
it
less
takes up
than
like
half.
of
No,
Alaska.
that is the whole freaking state.
Yeah, people are saying that it's the whole state, and when I looked at it, I was like, it's a little less than half.
My apologies, I misheard that.
It was just stark difference based on what I was imagining, based on their conversation. So it's kind of pointless, but still,
I think it's actually
interesting.
Is interesting, and it is not pointless. I think that that's important. You have an entire California, one of the biggest states in the continental U.S. It is the size of California, approximately, give or take.
Oh,
that is freaking huge, and it does kind of make sense. To me, it makes sense that in an area that large, your statistic would be so much greater than the rest of the states. You know what I mean? Like the statistic of missing persons would be different.
Yeah. Do you see a ghost, JT?
No.
What do you?
I have a second monitor now.
Oh, okay.
So I was gonna look up while you were chatting what the difference in size is between that and the Bermuda Triangle.
All right. So what are these numbers? I feel like this is all boring, though, in the grand scheme of what this conversation can be. And we should get to the spooky stuff.
What's pertinent about it is an area basically the size of California.
The reference, yeah.
Of Alaska.
Yeah.
The Alaskan Triangle. And it is largely, almost entirely, unpopulated. So doesn't it follow that it would be more likely for people to disappear in some place that freaking big and that untamed? With freaking glaciers, no less.
Yeah.
And giant ass bears that are starving all the time. Or I don't know, starving. But they're hungry and they hunt people. So I'm not saying that supernatural stuff doesn't happen there, because I do believe it does. But I think that the percentage of people that goes missing actually does make sense and does not necessarily owe to any kind of supernatural cause necessarily.
That echoes my own sentiments. And based on the reading that I'm doing in forums, that seems to be the sentiment of a lot of people who actually live there.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, this place will get you.
Yeah. So here's the numbers. So the Alaskan Triangle is roughly half the size of the Bermuda Triangle.
What?
Oh, what?
The Bermuda Triangle is twice the size of the Alaskan Triangle?
That can't.
Yes.
I did not know that. We need to do the Bermuda Triangle next. Oh my God.
Because Bermuda Triangle spans from Florida to Bermuda to Puerto Rico.
I don't know why I thought those were all very close together. I mean, I knew it covered a big portion of the ocean. I just thought it was smaller.
It's mostly all ocean.
Yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle is all ocean, and all the disappearances are either boat or plane related.
Wow.
So the Alaskan Triangle, because it stretches over such a mountainous and icy terrain, it's very hard for search and rescue to find people.
Yeah. Which
might explain some of it.
I have another detail to add to the search and rescue piece. As probably nobody here knows, I used to work for a search and rescue unit in the United States Air Force for a short period of time.
Okay.
And one of the things that I learned is...
I didn't even know that.
Oh, you didn't?
No, keep going.
Yeah. Initially, I worked with F-16s, and then I worked with HH-60s. And one of the things we have to learn is how the aircraft actually responds in different environments, and like what are some of the limitations of any aircraft at all in different environments. And in icy environments, despite the fact that the temperature actually would theoretically create better lift, all of the ice, so like if we're talking about search and rescue situations in the dead of winter where it's very, very cold, and in that area it's like negative, I don't know, 30 degrees, sometimes more, all of that ice will line the skin of the aircraft, like the wings and propellers of like helicopters and whatnot. It actually causes a situation where it's actually very difficult to gain lift, and rescue aircraft, any aircraft, will lose their lift or have a very difficult time maintaining lift. And so it's very, very treacherous. One small mistake or miscalculation will cause an aircraft to go down in a place like that, where it's high altitude and very, very cold. And I wanted to add that because I didn't know that until the pilot bros kind of told us that, because that was news to me. I did not realize what an impact that has on aircraft, and not just military, like any aircraft. It is just a physics thing. So I wanted to add that to the discussion.
Well, speaking of aircraft, there is one aircraft disappearance that kind of put the Alaskan Triangle on the map.
Mm.
And this is from October 16th, 1972. There was a small twin-engine Cessna 310 that departed from Anchorage for Juneau, carrying high-profile passengers on a campaign trip. U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs, Democrat from Louisiana, a powerful politician and member of the Warren Commission investigating JFK's assassination. Alaskan Congressman Nick Begich, B-E-G-I-C-H.
Bigich.
Something like that. He was a Democrat from Alaska who was in a tight re-election race. The congressman's aide, Russell Brown, and then the pilot.
There's pirates on this thing? Amazing.
Well, his name is Don Johns. So you have Don.
So Don Juan?
Yeah, I know. I was like, pirate. Well, okay.
What was the other guy's name? Something bitch?
Begich.
And Don Juan, huh? All right.
I mean, no wonder he's a congressman, or was. So the plane never arrived in Juneau. There was no distress signal. And despite one of the largest searches in Alaskan history, covering over 325,000 square miles, involving military aircraft, boats, and more than 3,600 flight hours, no trace of the plane wreckage or the four men were ever found. They were finally declared dead in December of 1972. The case sparked conspiracy theories, like it was because Bogg was part of the investigation of JFK's assassination. Political enemies. At the time, the FBI director was J. Edgar Hoover. But nothing was proven. And this high-profile vanishing of government officials still remains one of the most famous unsolved cases in U.S. aviation history, and gave attention to, a spotlight on, the Alaskan Triangle. And before we go into many more disappearances, most of my disappearances are after that. I really wanted to talk about the indigenous people and the legends that exist for this area. And we have Amanda, who has dug deep into this.
I had fun, actually. This was really fun. First, I wanted to know what were the tribes that were actually out there. And I was shocked to discover, but maybe I shouldn't have been shocked. There are 229 federally recognized tribes in Alaska.
Wow.
There are 11 distinct cultures and 20 plus, more than 20 distinct languages. And that includes the Inupiat, which is Inuit, the Yupik, the Tlingit, Athabasca, and Aleut. And so I specifically even like went down to a map level, like where are these tribes actually located? Which ones are the most relevant to the area that we're calling the Alaskan Triangle? And then I wanted to break down what were their actual beliefs and what kind of stories did they have to tell about this area. And what I found was that even between these distinct cultures and tribes, they had very similar stories about things that they were seeing out in the wilderness. And we need to remember that these are animist people. So, in their opinion, all peoples are people. So, otter is a person, raven is a very important person, but more like a figure or deity. Raven is maybe the most important. And there are lots of stories that reflect the relationship that the human peoples had with these animal peoples. And a lot of those stories were cautionary tales and stories about surviving in the wilderness. How do these animal people survive in this wilderness? And these were stories that were passed down and told between the peoples. And I think that as a way of remembering, the moose does this and the elk does that, otter does this, beaver does that. These are ways of survival that the animals are teaching us that we can also adopt and practice. But in and amongst those stories are some really interesting tales of very harmful creatures. And these seem like the indigenous versions of the Huldra folk that we know of, the hidden people, elves and other kinds of creatures. They have little people. They have hairy creatures that are part dog and kind of part man. They have bushmen who might be like their version of like Sasquatch. They have strange mermaid creatures. So the Kalupalik is an Inuit mermaid. I'm going to describe her a little bit, or them, because they come in both genders, I believe. It's a scaly, green-skinned humanoid with very long hair that inhabits icy waters and will kidnap children who wander too close to the edge. It's got green skin, long hair, and webbed hands. It often wears a parka. It's like a traditional parka that also has like a hood in the back where you can stuff kids. So like the peoples would use them to like carry their babies as they're like busy, so they have hands free. Well, apparently these mermaids also had that, and they would throw the kids back there and trap them so they could take them down. So she lures the children to the icy water's edge. She kidnaps them in this pouch, and then she takes them to the bottom of the sea. Sometimes they have scales or fins, long fingernails. They are said to hum or make a distinctive sound, which lures children to them. Then there's also the otter people, otherwise known as the Kushtaka. And I think the Kushtaka is frequently told in stories surrounding the Alaskan Triangle. And I have two stories from two different tribes, and they tell a very different depiction of these otter people. Let me tell you a little bit about the otter people. They are a kind of shapeshifter which inhabits the coastal areas, and I saw a little bit of the inner, the land areas too. They often lure people to their doom, or sometimes will rescue them and transform them into Kushtaka as well. And they have hideous features, very large, prominent teeth, fur covering their whole bodies, and they are said to be able to shapeshift at will. And they live primarily in the bottom of the waters, but they can kind of go back and forth between. So I have a couple of stories that I thought we would like to hear.
Let's go.
I'm going to do, so this particular one is from the Tlingit people. It's called the Land Otter Sun. There is a great famine at Sitka, and all the people went halibut fishing. Then a certain man went with his wife to the mouth of Redoubt Bay. He had prepared barks some time before, and when they got to this place, they made a house out of them. They fished there for a long time, but caught no more than 1 or 2 halibut a week. By the end of 2 months, they had little to live on except shellfish and other things picked up at low tide. One evening, they caught a small halibut at their fishing ground. They cooked a piece of it and put the rest on the drying frame in the brush house the man had constructed outside. The next day, they heard a noise there as if something were being thrown down and moved about. The woman said, "What can that be?" Then her husband went out and was astonished to see 2 medium-sized devilfish lying there. That devilfish is a translation of a word that refers to octopus, just so that we all know.
Okay.
He wondered how they had gotten up from the beach. Then he went in and said, "Wife, I am in luck. There are 2 large devilfish out there. I don't know who brought them, but tomorrow morning we will take them and see if we can't catch some halibut. The person who brought them here is very kind, for I have been hunting everywhere vainly for bait." The woman sat down and considered. She said, "Do you know who brought them here?" He said, "No." Then she said, "I will tell you who brought them here. Don't you remember that my son was drowned a year ago and no one has seen anything of him since? It must be he who has taken pity on us because he sees how poor we are. I will call his name if I hear anyone whistle tomorrow or any other night, for I know it's my son." In the morning they went out with these devilfish and caught 2 halibut. Evening came on. After they had reached home and it was dark, they began to cook the fish. Just as the woman was putting some into the pot, a person whistled behind the house. Then she said, "We have longed for you, my dear son. Come in. Don't whistle around us. We have been wishing for you for the last year, so do not be afraid." Then it whistled again. The man went to the door, opened it, and said, "Come in, my son. I think you have come to help us because we are very poorly off here. The door is open. Come right here. Come right in. Come right in." And without seeing him enter, all of a sudden he was seated opposite them with his hands over his face. "Is it you, my son?" they said. He only whistled by drawing in his breath. That was the way he spoke to them. So the story goes on for a while. I'm going to shorten it. But basically, this otter person, they know it's their son. This land otter man takes them out onto the canoe and helps them fish, and actually will dive into the water and catch the fish and bring them up into the boat after clubbing them. And he tells his parents, "Don't look at my face. Don't look at me. Don't watch me." But they watch anyway because, everybody always does. And, he spends quite a bit of time and resources helping them. And with his assistance, they get so much food that they're able actually to share it with the village, and they save a lot of lives that winter. And they tell everybody, it's because of our son. He came back as a land otter man and he saved us. This is the food that he caught for us. And so they shared that story with the village people, and this became kind of a local legend of the Tlingit people. So what's interesting about this story to me is, their son entered the water realm, and after entering the water realm became this Kushtaka. He became a land otter man himself and took on some of these magical qualities of those people. Now here's a different story from a different tribe. This is called the Ayak people, Eyak. This one's called the Man and the Land Otters. This one's written kind of weird, as if it is directly translated into English from the language without accounting for
Grammar
and syntax, and it's just a word for word translation without the fluency.
Okay.
And I do want to say that a lot of these languages are dying. There are very, very few people who are fluent in these old languages, and some of them even are dead. One of these languages, the last fluent speaker died in 2008, and there are usually in those villages young people who are doing their best to kind of reconstruct and relearn what's been lost. So this one flows a little weird. One man went hunting all the time in a canoe. He went on the beach, got out of canoe, alone. Soon he got up. He hears something. On the side of the canoe, he see 2 brown bears' hands. He grabbed the tree because he was afraid. When he looked back at canoe, the bear was gone. Bear looked back and saw the man up the tree. The man had a spear. When the bears came to the tree, he killed both. One bear watched them and went to the hole to call another bear. 1,000 bear coming. The man cleaned them all up. The watchman bear called more bears. The man is tired now. The watchman bear got some more bears. The man saw a big waterfall and went under it. The bear was looking for him but couldn't find him. 2 days man stayed there. Then he went to salt water. He see another canoe coming. He had 2 brothers. The brothers found him. Come on, they said. We found him. He go to the canoe. He went home. He had a wife and 2 children. It was dark when he lay down. He got up in the night. He looked at his wife. She was a land otter. He thought he was home, but it was a land otter's hole. He killed all the land otters with a piece of stick. He went out. It was too far to walk home. He went, and when he saw something to eat, he ate it. Sometime he saw a canoe. It belonged to the land otters. The land otters had taken his brother who had drowned. How long time ago? He had turned into a land otter. The land otter asked him, "Do you recognize me?" "No." It was his brother who had turned into a land otter. How long ago the land otters got me? I know what they do. The land otters are people. The land otter said, "Let's go home. I'll take you home." The man was scared. The land otter took his brother on his back and took him into the water. He didn't feel the water. He saw everything under the water. He didn't know how long, but his brother took him home and said, "Now you go ashore." He saw his wife. He killed his wife. He ate her. Then he went back to the land otter's home. He was a devil already. So he's in the middle of the woods somewhere. He gets cornered by some bears. He climbs a tree, and then he's able to kind of escape behind a waterfall or something. And after he does that, he goes into like some kind of hole where he thinks that he can kind of escape. And it turns out he's actually under the water, and he's married, and there's a land otter wife and land otter kids, and he kills them thinking, "Oh my God, I don't want to become these people." But then he's rescued by a land otter person and returned home, but it's already too late. He has already become a land otter person because he spent too much time below the water with them. And in becoming a land otter person, when he returned to shore, he killed his human family because he was already turned and he was already evil. So it's a very, very different, ominous feeling that kind of warns of the danger of not being careful. And that when you are encountering these people, if you're not being fully aware and conscious of what you're doing, you can step into their world and you can become them without even realizing it. And that is ultimately a very bad thing, and that they are dangerous. So on the one hand, we have a story where the land otter son is kind and benevolent. He helps feed them in the village. He saves them. On the other hand, we have this story where a man becomes a land otter man on accident and then murders his family and is described as a devil. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just really interesting, the difference in attitude depending on the tribe and maybe depending on what their experiences have been with these creatures. Much like with the little people described in any other culture we've seen so far, they're considered mercurial. You know, you could be captured by them and killed by them. You could be taken by them and drowned and turned into a land otter person yourself. They could be kind. They could gift you things. It really just kind of depends, I guess, on the individual and on the situation.
Wow.
So that's the Kushtaka, which is one of the more famous. But there's also, and I want to kind of save some room for this because I don't have stories that go with these. There are also the Adlet, which is a kind of dog person. It's a mythological dog-human hybrid who is known for speed and hunting. And in the story, a woman married a giant dog, and she had several children. 5 of them ended up being dogs, and 5 of them were these creatures called the Adlet. In the legend, a woman named Niviarsiang married a large red and white dog, Ijirkang. She gave birth to 10 children. Like I said, 5 were dogs and 5 were Adlet. Terrified, she set the 5 dog children adrift. They survived, and they became the ancestors of the white Scandinavians and Europeans. The 5 half-human children stayed behind and became the ferocious, man-eating Adlet. They are described as having the upper body of a human and the lower body of a dog or wolf. They are also frequently depicted as having fur-covered bodies. They are known for extreme speed, hunting in packs, and being aggressive. These are inland spirits, and they are often compared to and confused with werewolves, but they're not werewolves. This is a really integral part of Inuit folklore, and they are very much separate from werewolves. Then also there are stories across multiple tribes, and I checked everywhere that I could about these creatures that they call the Tornit, or otherwise known as Bushmen. They are giant, hairy creatures which are similar to Bigfoot, possessing great strength. Then, in addition to the Bushmen, there is also this other creature, which is very similar in appearance, but in attitude is very different. It's aggressive. It is violent, and it often, frequently, will kill people. So and this is a legend from the Atna people, who are inland people. They're not on the coast. They're very much on the inland. They believe in this creature called the Bush Indians, or the Koleni, or the Tse'eleni. These are wild men of the tundra. They're aggressive and said to wage war against the Athabaskan people. Bush Indians often feature as boogeymen in Athna stories told to children, sometimes kidnapping or even eating children who are not careful. They are hairy wild men of the tundra and other Alaskan Athabaskan folklore. They are very aggressive and often feature as that's a duplicate. So that's the Bush Indian. That's Eleeni. Then we have the Nuhuan. That's a hairy, Bigfoot-like wild man of the forest who moves silently and rarely shows himself to humans. He steals things a lot and can cause other kinds of minor mischief, and sometimes will capture children. But he tends to be less aggressive and less trouble. He's solitary, stealthy, and goes to a lot of trouble to not kill people. But they are described as kind of looking and behaving and living in the wilderness in very similar ways. But they are considered two very distinct creatures from each other. Then there are stories of the Seteni. It's a legendary humanoid creature with tails who lived in trees and in caves. They were enemies of humans. Their name literally translates to tailed ones, and it's Setani. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong. And they are sometimes also referred to as the monkey people. But keep in mind, Alaska has never had monkeys. Never. So this is actually a modern word, monkey people, that's been adopted into the culture and language from after, whoa, what's happening?
That's the otter man.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
It's creepy. It's kind of sad. But it's just interesting that they have these monkey people who supposedly live in Alaska and hung from trees with their tails. Then there's also the Guch. They are an underwater monster that lurked in lakes and ate people. It is an underwater monster and its name literally means scaled one, and usually referred to scaly fish or sometimes chitinous insects in some tribes. So let's see, I have a couple other stories. It's just very, very rich in all of the different ways that people can be taken away from their loved ones. There are also known to be little people, and there are several different names of little people and different kinds of tribes of little people. Let's see if I can find. So, and I'm not sure which tribe talks about the Irsenrats, but these are underground little people. They're small supernatural beings that are known to live underground. They possess great speed and strength, and they're known to kidnap people. So that's one group of these little people. Then we have other little people. They're called the around the lake people. Mankaditlian Daksanyu. It's a very, very long word. And I have a story about them.
All right, let's hear it. Around the lake people, little people.
So around the lake people. Dwarfs as big as a thumb. used to hunt and fish around the country. They were found around Strawberry Point. This is Hinchinbrook Island near Boswell Bay, at the small lake there. The little women row, the little man hunt and fish. A human captured a little man who had become tangled in some roots. The dwarf gave this man all his hunting outfit, spears and bow and arrows to let him go. One spear even, with an agate point, he hated to part with. When he was turned loose, he returned home, but his people had gone outside the breakers. He hollered for them to come back and get him. One of his relatives came through the breakers for him. They all started home in canoes, and on the way they saw a mouse, which for them is basically a brown bear. They all landed to try and kill him. The little man without hunting implements was killed by this bear, for he had no way to defend himself. But the other people killed the bear. The bear was cut up in small pieces and left there because he had killed one of their people. They put the body of the dead man in a canoe without examining it at all. His relatives took the body home. The wife ran down to meet her husband because she didn't know yet that he was dead. The skin of his head had been pulled off.
Ew.
The wife and children ran down to meet him. They were happy that their man was coming home. The wife, when she saw her husband's head, tore a piece from the bottom of her skirt and bandaged his head. They took the body and placed it in front of the left front house post. They left the body outside for 8 days. On the 8th day, they took the body inside. Towards noon, the body began to move. Only the wife was there. Right at noon, he moved more and more until he lifted his head. He sat up and scratched his head and asked his wife what had happened, and she told him that a bear had killed him. He asked what they had done with the bear, and she said, well, they killed it, cut it into bits, and left it there. He wanted to know then who brought his body home. And so I guess she told him. So then he says, well, don't worry about me. Love ya. And then he went off with 2 other dudes, and he went to this place called Yucatatic. And they were gone for a whole year. They came back at the time when the birds start to lay eggs. When the people saw them coming, they were excited. Each man was coming in separate canoe, and all 3 were full of brown bear skins. When they landed, the people lifted them up and carried them to the house. The man was made chief of the tribe. When they had finished eating, he said to his wife, I guess I got even with those bears. And there's a little bit more left of the story, but I just think it's really funny that it really describes these people as holding a pretty significant grudge. A bear killed him, so he left for a whole year to just kill all the bears that he could find. And that was part of his need to feel vindicated. And I like what is said about these little people. They have some kind of, maybe they're not immortal, but they have some really superhuman ability to heal. They have the ability to communicate with human people, and they have rules and structure just like regular people. They live lives a lot like regular people. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting story.
And they're this big, size of a thumb.
And they're this big. That's the person right there.
Size of a thumb. That's crazy.
There is one more kind of type of creature. It's called the traveler. Yamach telchich, or Yaba tishe, or Yamach telchig. And it's also known as the transformer or wanderer. Hey, wanderers. Maybe this is about you.
Maybe.
This traveler is considered a heroic monster slayer in the area of the Tanacross tribes and Tanacross folklore, which is very, very much in the interior of the Alaskan Triangle. Frequently, he uses his cleverness rather than his strength to defeat his enemies. He either kills them or transforms them into something harmless. And that's as much as I could find. I did spend quite a bit of time looking for the bush Indian stories, the woodmen stories, and traveler stories, but no matter which tribe I went to, any of their resources, these were stories that were not talked about. They just weren't shared. There's a lot of stories about raven and frog people and the little people that are freely shared, but these particular creatures are not. I want to see. There's a very creepy story that I would like to share. This is a different land otter man story, and I'm not sure where I got this from. That this one's very short and also, I feel like, very creepy. In the town to which these people belonged, once lived a little boy who was always crying. His parents tried to rear him properly, yet he cried all the time. Finally, his father shouted out, "Come this way, land otter man." And it's actually Jinakakswa Asla, I think. "Pull this boy away, for he cries too much." Toward evening, he repeated the same words, and this time the land otter man behind the house shouted out stutteringly, "Bring my grandchild here and let him eat to keep him quiet." So the little boy was taken away and given what appeared to be blackberries. 2 days afterward, they began searching for him, and they finally found him far up in the woods. When they brought him down, he had a big belly and did not cry as loudly as he had before, so they thought that something was wrong. Then they boiled some dried salmon and gave him broth made from it. The heat of this broth expelled all of the small creatures that had been given him to eat under the appearance of blackberries. Spiders began running out of his mouth, ears, nose, eyes, and buttocks. His insides were filled with them, and they had eaten out all of his flesh. When these were expelled, nothing was left but the skin, which they threw away.
Ugh.
That one kind of makes me wonder a little bit if that is an indigenous interpretation of what it looks like to have a really, 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 really bad and profound, like, tapeworm infestation or some other kind of parasitic infestation to the point where they were overflowing in his intestinal system and like coming out. And maybe that boy was crying so much because he was literally starving to death because only the worms were eating. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that one, is really creepy. And as I said, there are tons and tons and tons of stories of different kinds of creatures who will get you. They're just going to get you. And those include actual creatures that we know of, bears and wolves and whatever, the moose and elk and all kinds of things, and these other shape-shifting creatures. So there was a lot of reason to be concerned when loved ones went out into the wilderness, and a lot of reason to explain why loved ones might have gone missing. But also, there were a lot of stories of loved ones who returned in ways that were very different from how they had gone out. So I think it's really fascinating, and I think paints a picture of a really eerie landscape where you have to be in relationship with a lot of different kinds of creatures and be fully aware of what's going on around you. And even if you can't necessarily see it, you have to understand that it probably is there regardless.
Well, that's interesting because there's a story of a guy who vanishes. His name is Paul Michael Latmeyer. And this was in 2012, 2013. He was a 65-year-old first-time runner. And he was running during the Mount Marathon race near Seward. This is in the Triangle region. He was just 200 feet from the finish line. He'd already given up his bib that had his number on it, to the officials. And after that, he disappeared into the foggy conditions and was never found, even after extensive searches. 200 feet from the finish line, gone.
This is eerie. I remember reading this story and thinking this is exactly a missing 401 story. Like that is crazy.
Just so maybe one of these things, ottermen got him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just they were waiting. Conditions were perfect and gone. So what's crazy is I've been there in that area. I could have been snatched. Who knows?
But you said you never left the boat, right? Like you saw everything from afar?
We landed in Seward and then took buses to Anchorage to fly home.
Oh. Yeah, you were in danger,
And
friend.
then I flew into Juneau to catch the boat. Juneau, because Juneau is like, it's on the coast, but across from it is another island, and it's big mountain island, and you have to fly down in between these mountains, and then you're flying over the water, and then you're landing. It's such a weird place to go and try to land a big plane like that, but they do it.
Sounds beautiful. I would love to see it.
Well, and what funny thing is, when I was there, it was gorgeous. It was 65 degrees. It was nice. And as soon as I got in the cab, I was like, man, this is great weather. And he goes, yeah, it's never like this. Don't ever move here.
Oh my God.
Okay. Abby, what did you look up? What did you find?
I found that I really disliked the Alaska Triangle.
Why?
Wait, what? Why?
I mean, as a topic to talk about for this show, it's turned into so much creepypasta.
Oh.
It was really difficult for me to even find any genuine Bigfoot stories, because that's what I was looking for this episode. And here's some information that I was able to iron out for us. According to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, we've talked about them before in previous episodes discussing Bigfoot. They are considered a sort of authority, although it wouldn't surprise me to learn that a lot of people don't know about them, and that a lot of people who are having Bigfoot encounters aren't just like, oh my God, I saw Bigfoot, I need to go report that to the BFRO. And as such, the coordinates of the Alaskan Triangle, I can say, generally are congruent with the BFRO map of Bigfoot sightings for the most part. However, there are very few, very scant reports of Bigfoot sightings in Alaska reported to the BFRO. 22 reports exactly.
Maybe
Wow.
they get eaten before they can report it.
Well, okay, right. Because 20,000
Just kidding.
people have gone missing. So,
Right.
Sure.
Maybe those same people, some of those people encountered Bigfoot.
Maybe they don't live to tell the tale. They're very valid.
Or they ended up being forced to marry Bigfoot, because that's something that the native people talk about too. The indigenous people talk about. They either get eaten or they're hunted to become mates.
Well, okay. That is good food for thought. So, but that's 22 reports in Alaska compared to 724 reports in Washington state. The nearest of the 48, that is just south of Alaska. And just next door, you've got the British Columbia has 137 total sightings. I mean, considerably more. And 5 times more-ish. And I just thought that's weird that there's so few. And then even within those few, some of those stories don't even sound that great. I did pull up a few of the stories that I thought sounded pretty credible. This one's only a Class B, I think, because there weren't multiple witnesses. Okay, so this is in fall of 1998. Reported in specifically Bethel County of Alaska, 45 miles by air west of Lake Liamna. Did I pronounce that right? Liamna?
It sounds good.
The story is, my hunting buddy and I were sitting on a ridge watching for caribou. About 1,000 yards away, a large clearing was in view. While we were glassing the clearing for caribou to come out of the bush, we watched a large gray animal walking on hind legs walk between 2 large spruce trees on opposite sides of the clearing. We are both longtime Alaskans avid hunters, and have logged many, many hunts in North America. I have hunted all of North America's deer, elk, black, and grizzly bear. I have never seen an animal like what we saw that day. We watched it for over a half an hour move from one tree across the clearing to the other tree. Eventually, caribou moved into the area and we lost sight of the animal when it moved off into heavy brush. We had never heard of a Bigfoot in Alaska, but we did tell the bush pilot that picked us up from our hunt that we had seen something strange. He told us we had probably seen the hairy man, a well-known animal of the Liamna region by the native people. I don't know why that one's considered a class B. I forget what their classing system is, and I don't want to bother taking the time right now to look it up.
I think that's fair. Because that does seem pretty compelling.
Yeah.
These are people who are outdoors a lot and know their animals.
Right. And it's a simple story. There's other stories that are just so long, and what we had for lunch, and we stopped randomly to have a conversation for a couple minutes and it has nothing to do with the story. And I'm like, ugh. I mean, it doesn't tell necessarily that they're lying. It could speak to just people not knowing how to write. You know,
Yeah.
You remember having to learn in school, like some of these details don't belong, identify them. And you have to be taught how to not write useless information. Anyway. So let's see. Here's another one. This one is of Cordova, McCarthy County, the year 2000 in the summer. My hiking partner and I arrived late to the Kennecott area. We were trying to make it to the campsites near the glacier, but it started getting too dark even for us. So we decided to camp at the first available site. We found a small spot right off the trail, so we made camp and hung our supplies in a tree down the trail. Started a fire, and were just finishing a small meal when I walked to the trail to smoke. I was standing on the trail a few minutes when I noticed what I thought was a man on a bike coming down the trail. I let my partner know, but when I looked back, it was still in the same spot. I started looking more closely to see a face or the bike or something. It was then I realized it wasn't a person. It was a large, dark form, legs spread apart. This is what led me to think it was a person on a bike. The arms were curled at its side like someone with hands on handlebars. Too big for a bear, and the legs were too far apart. I called my partner, but when I turned back to look at it again, it moved very quickly into the woods on two legs. The next day we looked, but found no evidence of anything on the trail. I've told this story to a few people, but they think I'm crazy. I hope that this helps. I know what I saw. I guess I'm just hoping somebody believes me. I did hear, this is the also noticed category of the form, I did hear what appeared to be grunting in the distance. And his partner didn't witness it. He says he was about 15 feet away from their little campsite, to smoke away from the partner or whatever. So that's another one that sounds credible as far as I can tell. Now, this one is really interesting. So this one is in the late 1970s, also in the summer, and this is Fairbanks County. I was part of a group of about a dozen Army personnel training in the area. It was summer on a warm, clear day. We were above tree line and had been camped there for several days. I was looking across the nearest valley when I spotted movement. It was on the base of a steep mountainside in bare, rocky terrain with snow fields descending down the small gullies on the hillside. It was moving up the valley about a half a mile away. Wait, did I skip something? Oh, I spotted movement, and he's just saying it. Okay, got it. When it crossed the snow, you could plainly see that it was not a bear. It walked upright with long strides and arms swinging and moved fast across the white snow. It was dark in color like a bear. I have seen bears many times since in the same type of terrain, and they do not move like this did. It was too big and fast to be human. Bears can and do walk upright, usually for short instances when they need to see or smell something and need the height. They don't travel in this manner and not in difficult terrain. I pointed it out to the other guys, and we watched it until you could no longer see it. When it was out of the snow, it was hard to see against the rocks. We wanted to go look at the tracks, but everyone was scared to go down there. We had to sleep there that night, and nobody would go outside after dark.
I think that's a smart decision.
The next day we got out and never went back. 20 years later, I still would not go up there, even with a group and with guns. The only thing I have seen that looked like this is the descriptions of Bigfoot.
Wow.
Amazing.
I just think it's funny that all these army dudes were like, nope, I'm not going outside.
Fuck that. No, thank you.
I do not want to go see the footprints. That's okay.
Oh, man.
There is this theory about Bigfoot that there is some version of what's called infrasound that Bigfoot kind of emits. It is this vibration or sound that I guess lions do it too, and other certain big predators do it. And it's a warning.
It's like
you can't consciously hear it,
sonic,
but you feel it.
It's a sub.
And it's like,
it's some sort of
subsonic
frequency,
kind of sound of some kind, vibration.
Earthquakes make the same vibration, which is what animals are usually reacting to, like when birds are flying away and freaking out if a volcano is about to erupt. Yes, you're right, Mandy.
And so I've heard that people don't consciously hear it, but what they are left with is this terrible, terrible sensation. They have got to get the hell out of there. This is not safe. I am not safe. Something is hunting me. I have this terrible feeling. Let's get the fuck out. And it just makes, it's like this, almost like an impending doom sensation, but like something external to themselves. Like something around me is really bad right now. I gotta bail. And that is frequently described with Bigfoot encounters.
Yeah. And alien encounters too. Which I hope that we will discuss when we're talking about the John Keel book, because he very confidently just talks about how like he's got an alien encounter and suddenly like is struck by this feeling of fear and impending doom, and like and he kind of goes for a minute about that and how apparently back in his heyday, that was kind of a known phenomenon about UFO sightings that I feel like you don't hear so much about anymore. Or maybe it's just me because I don't look into ufology stuff or UFO sightings, but anyway, so I think that's a really, really good point. And it comes full circle back to that idea of UFO sightings and Bigfoot being connected. I don't know. I'm just drawing the connections to those dots there. But you're right that it could just be a growl if we know that about lions and animals and earthquakes and other things. Infrasonic sound is something. Yeah, that's a real thing. I think that I have that in my house because I get a real sense of anxiety when I'm sitting in a specific spot and there's a very, very specific area. It's like directly to my left, right here, that like I get anxiety over just being near it. And we have a turtle tank touching this wall on the other side. And I have a feeling that the low hum from the vibrations of the pump are going through the wall and like freaking me out.
Probably becoming amplified and changing just enough. Yeah.
That's
creepy.
You know, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the Travis Walton story talks about that low hum. Like even the guys in the truck felt it.
Yeah.
That's right.
As that UFO was shaking the whole ground and everything.
Yes.
That's so fascinating that you bring that up.
Yes. It's a vibration. Exactly. That's, yes, I mean, science.
Science.
I have one more story that I'm going to share from the BFRO site. And then I have another more generic, interesting, sensationalized story, that I found from elsewhere.
Okay.
So these are the less sensationalized, just more normal, in my opinion, kinds of stories that are believable and are harder to find in forum form. Like I didn't find a whole lot in terms of people having discussions on Reddit. It wasn't like easy to find per se. But on BFRO, these 22 are here. And then, of course, and I'll get to it, there's a saturation of stories, but they're more sensationalized, and I'll get to that. This incident is a Class A category, reported to have happened in 1992 in Matanuska, Susitna. Okay. I was looking to Mandy for a correction.
Girl, did you see? I got to show you that, just as an aside. I want to show you one of these freaking words. And I was like, I think I pronounced it. I don't know. There are like friggin' punctuation marks within the freaking word. Like there was a literal exclamation point.
Nice.
That I was like, how do I pronounce this?
Is that a type
what do
error?
I do here?
Like that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's meant to convey some kind of
sound,
either pause or
yeah,
click or some weird pronunciation that doesn't probably exist. Oh, here it is. In English?
In our alphabet, yeah.
Here, I'm just gonna put this in the chat real quick.
Oh. And then we'll all take a turn trying to butcher it?
Yes. How fun would that be? Yes. Agreed.
Where is it? Oh, it's not
coming.
there.
It's coming.
Okay.
This is about the monkey people, or the tailed ones. How do we pronounce this?
Oh. Nope. Litkietsku.
I don't know.
Yeah,
how do
what
you
is
pronounce
the
that exclamation
Yeah,
point?
how do you pronounce the exclamation point? Is it Li'itsku? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Like you have to have some sort of loud pause
or like a weird, like a little bit of
like a click or something I can't do.
No idea. Here's another one for a different word. K'atkedi. Like, is it k'atkedi? You do like a little like a staccato. It's k'at.
Is that what you learned?
No,
I don't know, guys.
Asking.
Okay, so
anyway,
yeah,
moving on.
It's not for us.
No, it's not. We apologize, Indigenous people of Alaska.
Yeah, we
don't know.
All right, so this story happened. This is a Class A that happened in 1992 in Matanuska, Susitna County. The incident occurred on the highway from Anchorage to Fairbanks, Alaska, just before the tourist area of the Denali Park. A friend and I were driving back to Fairbanks from Anchorage. I was driving her truck, a 1980 Dodge D50. These trucks sit very low to the ground. It was late at night and we were just about to reach the tourist area of the Denali Park. It wasn't winter yet. Just before a corner, my lights hit something sitting on the yellow line in the middle of the road. So the lights hit something. The lights to this truck were grossly out of adjustment, so they were pointing right at the thing. It was sitting in the middle of the road, and its legs pulled up to its chest, and its arms folded over its knees. Its head was between its arms, looking downward toward the ground. It had long human-like hair. At first, I thought it was an orangutan. Then I thought to myself, what would an orangutan be doing in the middle of nowhere in Alaska?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived here almost all my life, and there is no animal like this one. I thought to myself, the only way that could have been an orangutan is if there's a circus out here. And I knew that that was not a possibility in such a remote area. I drove right next to it, and I was at its level. If I had been going slow, I could have touched it easily. I was freaked out and thought I must be seeing things. Maybe I was tired. But my friend saw it too, although neither one of us said a word until we reached the gas station in the town of Healy, just past Denali. She said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "I thought I was seeing things." This spooked us so bad, we didn't even say anything to each other about it until we were around people. We've talked about this and still agree that we saw this thing. We've given up on trying to explain it to anyone else because no one believes it anyway.
Wow.
Why I feel this is so unusual is there is no animal native to Alaska that could resemble this thing in any way. We have bears, moose, caribou, porcupine, rabbits, etc., but none of these animals have knees or long reddish colored hair. I don't know how to explain it, and I've given up trying to because nobody believes it. They think we're joking. I don't want to be harassed by any nuts, and I just wanted to share my genuine incident in case others have seen it. And that's that story. So maybe it was an orangutan or maybe it was a Bigfoot. This person certainly is like, I saw something that looked like an orangutan. And the only place that makes sense to talk about it is BFRO, I suppose. So those are some simple stories. There are otherwise a slew. I mean, there's no shortage of videos you can find, dramatizations, because Alaska has become a hotbed of reality TV and docuseries
Oh, right.
that go in there. And I don't know if they're really like just getting deep in there and finding people with real stories and being like, great, talk to me about it. And then they're dramatizing it, or if they're engineering some of these things or what. But there is so much going on, and some of it is real lore of the area that they're kind of blowing up, and some of it seems to be new material that is being found and dramatized for these TV shows. And one specific story that I have that actually was first printed or made big was in 2009, apparently, according to skeptoid.com, the monster of Port Chatham. There was a story, there was some old lore of this town, which technically actually isn't even in the Alaska Triangle, but it's close enough. It's very close. So in 1950, the story goes, the entire town of Portlock, aka Chatham, Alaska, a small fishing town in southern Alaska in the Cook Inlet. This is just southwest of Anchorage. Apparently was abandoned by all of its residents because they were terrorized by Bigfoot creatures, aggressive Bigfoot creatures, like assaulting, murdering, harming their residents, people disappearing and then being found later in pieces. And the story has just been made infamous through as copy pasta now. And so, as I started to say earlier, it really kind of picked up in 2009 in an article in the Homer Tribune, and then has just been copy and pasted on cryptozoology websites. And the author, Naomi Kluda, relied on two sources. One, a 1973 Anchorage Daily News article excerpt. It tells basic stories but gives few specifics and is adamant that all the people left in 1949 due entirely to Bigfoot attacks. So that's from that one source in 1973, an Anchorage Daily News paper claimed that all these people abandoned the house because of Bigfoot attacks.
Wow.
And then her second source was elderly Alaskan natives who grew up in Portlock. She was born in Portlock in 1934, so she was a very young, she was a young child when a lot of the brunt of things was still happening, or a teenager even, when her family was like, that's it, we're leaving, amongst everybody else. Now, people have gone back and fact-checked and found that there's no articles actually from within Portlock, aka Chatham, that talk at all about any weird things going on, any Bigfoot sightings. This author of this article, which I believe I already cited, The Monster of Port Chatham, he says, at this point, it falls to the responsible researcher to seek corroborating accounts. Alaska's digital newspaper program has provided over 250,000 scanned images to the Library of Congress, covering newspapers from the late 1700s through 1963. And anything so extraordinary as the types of killings and dismemberments as reported in these stories certainly should have made it into the news. However, searching these archives reveals the news from Portlock to be more mundane. Through the decades leading up to the town's abandonment, almost all of several hundred matching newspaper articles were related to commercial fishing, the odd lumber and mining story appearing for good measure. There's only one single crime reported in newspapers in all that time. And it's not any of the ones cited in any of the modern tales that have been woven. One newspaper report saying 2 hunters, Ben Sweezy and Bill Weaver, went missing. They went on a 2-week boat trip in 1917 and were never seen again.
1917?
Yeah.
Wow.
So long before 1949, when people finally were like, that's it, I'm out of here. Supposedly because of all these like horrible things going on and finding people dismembered and people disappearing and one person being smashed over the head apparently, and like there's all these crazy stories. So here's another account. This is on Reddit Cryptozoology. Pocket Weasel UK writes the true and frightening story of Portlock. He retells the story, the myths surrounding the cryptids. People went into the woods and turned up later as mutilated bodies. One was discovered killed by a blow to the head. Residents found enormous tracks and saw a huge hairy man beast in the woods. Eventually, the locals had had enough of this Bigfoot aggression in 1949 and they left, all of them, and they never came back. And he says, the trouble is, none of it is correct. Yes, they did leave the town, but not because of Bigfoot attacks. The truth is, there were no mysterious deaths in Portlock. The town closed down because a new highway offered better transportation links and took away the need for a port for sea traffic. Without a reason for its existence, the town just withered and died. It's sad, but it's economics. He provides a link. He says, read here for a very thorough investigation. I didn't bother clicking it. I was like, that's enough. Now, I did look up one other thing. So one thing that I would say is interesting, and one thing that I think everybody needs to take into account. I know Abby's the skeptic of the group. Boo, Abby, boo, Earns. I was just like, I don't know. I'm willing to believe Bigfoot exists. After all, I provided those 4 other stories from BFRO that seem simple, that seem like most of all other Bigfoot sightings that exist around the world that are like, yeah, I saw a thing and it freaked me the frick out and it wasn't a frickin' bear, so shut up. But then I also found an article called, Does Reality TV Change the Reality of Alaska? And the answer is basically yes. It says the influx of reality TV has changed the reality of Alaska. Everywhere the cameras go, locals grumble that television producers turn them into stereotypes, the backwards comical hillbilly or the handsome rugged outdoorsman. It says, following New Mexico's lead, Alaska adopted an entertainment tax incentive in 2008. And the number of commercials, TV shows, and movies filmed there shot up from 6 in 2009 to 38 last year. A decade ago, even those movies and TV that were set in Alaska were usually filmed elsewhere. The proposal, for instance, it offers as an example, took place in Sitka, but was filmed in Rockport, Massachusetts. Northern Exposure was filmed in Washington State.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So to get more tourism, we all know that people get paid in Alaska to live there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a thing, right? They're trying to build the population. And so
build
apparently...
the population, build the economy.
Yes. Apparently in 2008, they adopted these entertainment tax incentives. And because of how treacherous it is there, because there are just enough like crazy stories that have happened, the entertainment industry was like, heck yeah, let's do this. And so not only there's like a whole TV series apparently about the Alaska Triangle. There's a TV series like called Monsters of Alaska or something, I'm pretty sure. Like I barely even researched into that, but there's a slew of reality TV series about
gold diggers, the Tuktoyaktuk ice road drivers,
right?
Those
about surviving
the deadliest catch.
Yes.
There are some ones about families that live off grid. Like there's a couple of reality shows about these various families that have gone off grid.
Gold
Escapism.
mining.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's all in the rise.
It all makes sense now.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Of escapism, and so like all of this has blown up, and it was hard for me, honestly. I didn't realize my assignment was just Bigfoot, and I was very excited when I did a preliminary search. Apparently, there's a bunch of other cryptid reports of like weird giant 30-foot sea serpents and things, and I was like,
I've heard about that. Jeremy Wade from. What was that show he did? Jeremy Wade and something. He was a fisherman.
Oh, the River Monsters guy.
River Monsters. He actually investigated sea serpents out there. And he thinks that they're giant pikes, that they are these huge populations of pikes and this other really gorgeous, beautiful fish that can get like gigantic out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
That's probably true. There's also pictures and videos that have gone viral, and it turns out it's like old rope and fish nets that get like entangled with garbage and ice. Mm-hmm. And they have just enough wiggle room in the current to be that they end up moving, looking like a serpent. And I saw a picture, like some of the ice chunks resting atop the surface of the water look like little air bubbles. And I was like, what is happening there? And then somebody in the comments is like, oh yeah, it's ice stuck in like fishing net and debris. And you look closer and you're like, oh, it is ice.
I think I've seen the exact one that you're talking about. That one, it looks, because it undulates like something.
It's convincing.
And the person who filmed it did it in such a way to make it look like it was moving, but it's stationary. And if you know that, then it becomes very easy to see, oh, this isn't actually a snake. It's something stuck. Mm-hmm. But the way that it was filmed was misleading.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
So, I mean, I did watch a couple of like YouTube, stories about it's interesting how these reports on BFRO are mostly just, I cited a thing. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much minding its own business. I was scared, but it was just chilling. But then the vast majority of the reenactments that you find on YouTube are that it's like there's aggressive Bigfoot in Alaska that I could find. That seems to be the generalized perception, is that there's just like countless sightings of aggressive Bigfoot in Alaska. And at first I was like, well, that would make sense because those must be the ones that have been ostracized from their societies and they've been forced to go live in this like shitty subarctic, like.
Yeah, I'd be pissed if I had to live in the icy, snowy, crappy wilderness.
But I also thought it makes sense that there's so far fewer sightings of them. Let's just suspend all disbelief and say that it is true that they're out there. There probably is less population of them because that is like the worst climate. It makes a lot of sense that just next door in British Columbia, where it's got some winters, it's right on par with the sub-freezing temperatures, but a lot of the times it's not. A lot of the time its winters don't even hit below freezing. Boom, there's more there. It makes a lot of sense that there's a lot more down here in Washington where it just is not nearly that crappy weather-wise. And we're so close to that old like Bering Strait land connection situation, which we talked about in our previous Bigfoot episode last summer. It makes sense that there's the largest population of them over here in Washington, considering its proximity to that old land sea bridge and the fact that this is where the weather suddenly gets nice. And then perhaps they migrated elsewhere in the country.
I mean, maybe I feel like I already said this, but it also makes sense to me that Alaska is not as well populated. So maybe there are huge populations of these creatures that are just never seen because people who go out in those areas die.
Yeah, that's
either
true
from the
too.
elements or because of what, maybe they did encounter and then they died. I know I said that part already for sure I said that. But I am reminded of the fact that the indigenous peoples there had not one, not two, but like 3 or 4 different categories of these creatures that fit this distinct description of these not quite human, but sort of human-shaped creatures. The Adlet dogman, the bush Indians, the woodmen, the tailed ones. There were quite a few distinct creatures, and that is interesting because if it's something made up or something that we're misinterpreting, like our eyes are misinterpreting what we're seeing, how do you learn enough about them to distinguish their personality types and the ways that they engage with the environment around them? I do think that lends to a little bit of credibility. I know that that's weird to say, but I feel like that does lend a little bit more depth to the discussion.
I did say suspending disbelief.
Yeah. You did. Yep. You did.
I was talking as if I believe they're out there. I kind of do. But
you did. But I feel like, I guess I don't necessarily have any disbelief about it, I guess is
right. You don't need to suspend it.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting for me to take it as seriously as talking about the Bering Strait land bridge and the possible anthropological evolutionary direction of them. And then there's also this whole portal aspect of Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the portal.
And I feel like that's a good segue probably right on out of this topic. Do you have anything about that, JT?
Well, sort of. I'm going to kind of maybe tie it back to UFO sightings. But
fair.
The thing I wanted to point out, and the thing that I just looked up, is Alaska, out of any state in the union, has the highest rate of missing people.
Yeah.
Some estimates put it at over 160 per 100,000 people.
Okay.
Arizona has a missing persons rate of 12.28 per 100,000 people.
Oh my God.
That shows you the difference, the amount of people that disappear. And annually, Alaska has 3 million people visit it into tourism. So, and over 200,000 people since 1970s have disappeared. So in a short amount of time, there's been a lot of people that have just vanished. And then before that, I wanted to bring up another flight vanishing case and tie it back to UFOs. Okay. So this is in 1950. There's a Douglas C-54D Skymaster military flight that took off from Anchorage and was going towards Great Falls, Montana. It carried 44 people, 8 crew members, and 36 passengers, including military personnel, a civilian technician, and a pregnant woman with her young son. About 2 hours into the flight, after just crossing the Alaskan border into Yukon territory, the crew reported moderate turbulence and heavy icing, and that was the last communication. No distress call, and despite an extensive search, no wreckage, no bodies, no debris, nothing was found in the vast icy wilderness filled with glaciers, mountains, deep lakes. It just seems to have been swallowed up by the Alaskan Triangle. And there is a UFO sighting that happened in 1958 in Snag. It's the Yukon area that's near where this military plane actually vanished. And there was 2 moose hunters that reported a metallic oval object. Now there's another famous UFO sighting. This was a Japan Airlines flight, 1628. This was November 17th, 1986. Captain Kenju Teruchi, I can't say it in Japanese style. It was a Boeing 747 cargo jet flying from Paris to Tokyo. They first spotted 2 unusual lights trailing their plane at about 35,000 feet. The objects kept pace with the jet, moved erratically, and emitted bursts of light. The pilot described them initially as possibly military, but soon realized they were not. Then a massive mothership then appeared, described as a walnut-shaped, enormous, roughly the size of 2 aircraft carriers, and emitting heat that the crew could feel. The encounter lasted around 30 to 50 minutes. The objects were reportedly tracked on civilian and military radar, with air traffic control in Anchorage confirming the anomalies. The plane landed safely in Anchorage, and an FAA investigation followed, including interviews, radar data reviews, and the captain, who was an experienced pilot with over 10,000 hours, stood by his account, though he was later grounded or reassigned. And so some skeptics say he misidentified it, but that is one of the most famous UFO sightings over the Alaskan territory, with a large mothership, which could swallow up a plane, snag it right out of the sky. There's also in Mount Hayes, there's a dark pyramid alien base rumor, and conspiracy theories claim a massive underground or hidden structure inside Mount Hayes.
I've heard of this. And supposedly it's hidden on Google Earth now, but it didn't used to be.
Right.
And you could see very poorly photoshopped pictures where people said there was clearly evidence of something under the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So it served as an extraterrestrial or joint human alien base. And witnesses and researchers have reported strange lights, unnatural speeds, ground level encounters with multiple races of beings.
Reptilians. Nordics.
So with you can explain a lot of the disappearances of, potential animal attacks. You can't find anything. There's a couple of disappearances where, 30 years later, they found the dude's skull and there was animal marks in the skull.
Yeah,
in the
I saw
area
some of those.
the guy disappeared. So there's stories of that, and that could be, some of the disappearances, but so many people disappear in this area without a trace. Without a trace.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, David Paulides definitely has dedicated a lot of time to exploring those.
For sure, we also have to mention, Alaska has a pretty high population of serial killers up there. Like people who go there because they know it's an excellent dumping ground. We've had some of the most prolific serial killers in history have lived up there. But even considering that, I bring it up just to say, yes, we're thinking about these things. There are mundane, that's not necessarily mundane, but there are real world reasons why people disappear up there. We get that.
People can fall into a glacier. Gone.
Yeah.
Without a trace.
Yeah.
And
there are people who say, like, even if it's really like heavy snowfall, really cold, and you're out there on a walk or a hike or whatever, and you like lose the trail or you become delirious, freezing cold and stumble off the trail, like it's very easy to never find you. And Mandy's already covered the fact that it's extremely difficult for search and rescue missions to even be done. It does seem to be the general consensus in Reddit forums regarding missing people as being like, yeah, this forest, I mean, like, it's cold out there.
Yeah.
Like, you can just fall asleep and die.
Even on a spring night, it gets cold.
Yep.
And never be found. And you just freeze, and then the animals come and pick at your bones and carry you off.
I mean, I did an Alaskan cruise in the middle of July, and it was cold. I was wearing a sweatshirt the entire time.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I guess just want to reiterate, and I know I feel like I'm repeating myself. So, yes, there are so many good reasons and very easy ways.
Well, 20,000 people, yeah. Some of those people are being murdered and disposed of. Some of them are just dying
because they're dumb
out
and
there,
they fell, or they were just not
or whatever
as competent as they thought, or the nature got the best of them, even if they were exceptionally competent,
Right. But out of 20 freaking thousand, what was that number again,
20,
JT? 160 something out of
100,000 people per year.
That's more than just I'll give it to you guys. That seems like more than just being murdered and nature getting the best of you.
So
that's a lot.
That's freaking. If you compare that Phoenix's average or Arizona's is 12 per 100, that is an insane.
Right.
And we have
you're
some
talking about
harsh
heat,
wilderness
stroke,
places.
And,
yeah, we do too. Yeah.
I mean, it's the opposite, but we still have some harsh wilderness places here in Arizona. But not nearly enough people go missing in the Grand Canyon. People see a lot of it.
Arizona also is very wide open. You can't just like wander off a trail and not be found because,
True.
There's no, there aren't forests.
There are.
Hiding people. Yes. There are, but if we're talking about the vast majority of the landscape where people are possibly, having heat stroke or suffering from the elements, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, point being, something is different out there.
But Alaska is probably one of the harshest landscapes in the world.
There's a reason why so many seasons of Alone has been filmed up there in that area, or at least at that latitude.
Latitude,
yeah. Alaskan Triangle. I don't know. I think it was. What do you think? I think there's some interesting stuff that we probably didn't quite scratch deep enough into the surface. We really covered some of the more superficial topics.
Yes,
I was learning interesting things about the Native American populations. Number one, of those 20,000 people, there's some sex trafficking implications going on here. Native American women are the highest number in that statistic disappearing.
Yeah, the red hand.
Yes. And so there are some deeper things beyond the surface topics that we've discussed. Like a year ago when I ended up accidentally uncovering like the Olnug Mi'kmaq episode, I was digging into like haunted mall stories, and I found something about Mall 205 in Oregon. It used to be like a messed up mental institution, and it got government grants to stay alive, and a lot of the residents there were Alaskan Native Americans being, what's the word? Being committed, involuntarily committed. I remember kind of starting a discussion with you, and it kind of got us into a little bit into the topic of the Alaskan Triangle, but I do think there's probably some more interesting things worth talking about going on up there. I don't know how much of it really necessarily falls under the purview of our paranormal discussion, but I bet there's more.
I mean, just thinking about the Indigenous communities alone and their individual folklores and beliefs, I feel like I could have spent years. I didn't even uncover more than, a dozen names of different tribes, but there's 230 of them. There's an incredible amount of diversity of story that probably exists in history and recorded events in that area. And we didn't even, like you said, we barely scratched the surface. I agree. We could have spent a really long time on this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much that could have been researched, and we just scratched the surface. I mean, it's hard to get anything deep in just an hour with some of these topics. And
yeah. And this has been 2 hours.
I didn't even go deep into the UFO side of it. Like,
you guys, I started talking about the red hand and my camera went blurry.
Oh, it did.
Let's acknowledge these women. For starters, it needs to be said that it's not actually the red hand. It is the red hand print. And it is a very powerful symbol of solidarity with the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls movement, representing the thousands of voices silenced by violence and the indifference of media and law enforcement. It highlights the crisis where Native American women are up to 10 times more likely to be murdered or sexually assaulted. Had I known this, I would have definitely put out an episode highlighting this specific issue. Apparently, May 5th is the National Day. It's a National Day of Awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. On this day, you wear red or display the red hand. I did not know that, and I will be ready next year to stand with them. But at the very least, we can make this an acknowledgement and let all the rest of you know that we do have this day for this, and there is a movement for this. I encourage anyone and everyone to look up MMIW, the acronym for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, in order to find more information and find more ways that you can help out. Additionally, earlier in January, since we're on the topic of Alaska, Betsy actually had a friend who passed away who owned an all-female women's production company, and she specialized and exclusively did films on women's issues, raising awareness of violence, homelessness, Indigenous issues in Alaska, as well as other health issues that affect women. Her name was Mary Roseanne Katsky, and she just passed away in January.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Abbey. People suck.
They do.
Yeah.
There's not much more you can say about that.
No.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey of the mysterious, crazy, weird Alaskan Triangle.
Yep, and join us in 2 weeks for our episode about past lives, in which we will have a very special guest on the show.
This has been another episode of The
Wandering
Crow.